This is a presentation on the analytic plan for New York City School Accountability Initiative. The final outcome of this project are tools that will improve data-driven decision-making for the main project stakeholders, the Education Improvement Committee, or EIC. Welcome everyone. My name is Amanda Shear and I have provided contact information as I urge you all to follow up with any questions or suggestions. This information will be provided through handouts as well. For the final presentation, the contact information will follow the same format and precede all other slides, so the audience will know who the presenter is. In addition, the final presentation will also include handouts so audience members can follow up with questions post-hoc. The agenda slide will provide EIC with the expectations of and to orient them to the upcoming presentation. I will explain each topic more generally when presenting to the final audience. For now, this slide is to present to you all the main subject in this analysis plan. I will give you all a few moments to read the sections. The following slide will provide the problem definition derived from its history as well as the purpose of this analytics project. A federal law known as the Every Child Succeeds Act, or ESSA, was enacted to advance equity to protect disadvantaged students. It was created with the expectation that accountability and action will exist to cause positive change in the lower performing schools. This accountability is based on student proficiency measures to determine how each state will support public schools through distribution of federal money. The New York City Department of Education has recently approved New York State's plan that laid out its goals for its educational systems in alignment with the ESSA. ESSA will allow for the identifications of schools and districts that needed additional support to increase student equity. In order to receive and distribute the federal funding for education, New York City must be in good standing with the requirements set forth by the ESSA. Based on this criteria, New York City's approved plan involves evaluation of math and ELA test scores for elementary and middle school. To determine where educational programs and schools need increased support, the Educational Improvement Committee has provided criteria for the development of school accountability indicators. This initiative will result in baseline values and models to these indicators, as well as emphasize any schools or districts that require program evaluation and improvement. To recapitulate, the purpose of this project is to produce outcomes from the analysis on the accountability indicators that will serve as the decision support artifacts to identify New York City's designated schools per ESSA guidelines. With the new accountability results as evidence, the Education Improvement Committee can begin the processes to develop and implement evidence-based strategies to increase student achievement so all students have access to high-quality education. While this purpose is our foundation, the proposed research questions will serve as the framework for our project. I will discuss these next. This diagram represents the decision structure, the key decision components that served as this analysis framework for this project. Each node's value in this diagram was intentional. In order to evaluate performance measures for the 2014 school year from New York City's boroughs, districts, schools, and grades, the 2013 and 2014 data sets of New York City's math and ELA test results were obtained for use. The root node provided a foundational objective to partition the core data set into 4 groupings based on the stakeholder specifications of school, borough, district, and citywide grades. The chosen colors were picked based on the New York City's Department of Education's brand for the diagram and visually differentiate between groups, its leaves, and branches. In order to match the criteria provided by the EIC, feature selection based on the group's data sets were then performed. Leaves and branches were made to analyze the test results for each group based on the desired results. Since the project specifications included finding the 5 most improved and regressed groups and the top and lowest 5 performers for 2014, the leaves of the schools represented the yearly subsets that the group's data sets were partitioned into. In addition, an objective was to find forecasted 2015 values for grades 3 through 8 in all grades. Therefore, these 2 grade levels form leaves to represent the partitioning formed from the citywide grades group. The results from the two exams, ELA and math, form subsequent two triangles leaves to become the next criteria evaluated. EIC had requested to uncover performance and forecasted ELA and math exam values to serve as school accountability measures. Therefore, the two decision nodes represent the mean scale score for each exam from each partition dataset. The branches from the ELA and math leaves represent the statistical models that were used on the dataset subsets to find the top 5 and lowest 5 performing and most regressed and least regressed performers for each school. For the citywide group and from the math and the ELA exam area leaves, the branches specify that the forecasting models were simple moving averages, or SMA. Since only two parameters are available for each model, the SMA was chosen as no other signals are available to provide guidance. The SMA branches supply the final 4 scenarios of all grades and each of 3 through 8th grades forecasted values for the math and ELA exam areas. Overall, the branches diverge into 12 scenarios, and each scenario will require different statistical models to meet the stakeholders' specifications. In order to receive and distribute federal funding for education, New York City must be in good standing with the requirements set forth from the recent enactment of Every Student Succeeds Act. Therefore, New York City's approved plan involves evaluation of math and ELA test scores for elementary and middle school. The Educational Improvement Committee had created specific criteria for the performance measurements and has delegated this consulting team to return results based on these criteria. Despite being provided the specific objectives and data sets, a lack of approach for this initiative was apparent. This project needed to align the actual data with the stakeholders' visions and requirements. This alignment served as the project strategy, ensuring the team delivered the intended value. Thus, the decision structure provided an opportune method of organizing the criteria to aid in establishment of the results precision. The intuitive structure created a step-by-step plan for the team to follow. This organizational tool also emphasizes the information needed from the data gathering. Most importantly, this graphic of the analytic process flow will ensure that all project members and stakeholders understand the requirements and are in agreement with the scope and deliverables. The chosen values on the decision structure nodes are influenced by the EIC organization upholding the ESSA standards. The EIC needs to evaluate the proficiencies of New York City educational system through ELA and math test scores. The weakest performing schools will be identified as comprehensive support and improvement schools. These schools will be supervised, allocated additional funding, and must select improvement strategies from a state-approved list. They then must get off the comprehensive support and improvement list in 3 years or risk closing their school doors. On the contrary, New York State also honors the successful schools and districts through 2 categories. The strongest performing schools will have the highest assessment measures among all students. The other category is the highest progress reward school, and this honor is a school that has made the most progress in test measurement performance. To reiterate, the purpose of this project is to produce outcomes from the analysis on the accountability indicators that will serve as the decision support artifacts to identify New York City's designated schools per ESSA guidelines. With the new accountability results as evidence, the Education Improvement Committee can begin the processes to develop and implement the evidence-based strategies to increase student achievement, so all students have access to high equality education. While this purpose is our foundation, the proposed research questions will serve as the framework for our project. I will discuss these next. These questions will serve as the framework to the analysis approach and are based on the Education Improvement Committee's provided criteria. The first question will uncover the 5 strongest and 5 weakest performers in ELA and math exam areas in 2014. The second question will provide evidence to the 5 most improved and 5 most regressed for each of the schools in both exam areas in 2013 to 2014. The third question will guide the evaluation of relationships between geographical divisions of borough and district and performance levels. Finally, in 2014, are there any differences amongst the grade levels? What are the projected 2015 ELA and math exam scores for each grade, 3 through 8, and all grades? The following information is the analytic goals that will be communicated to decision makers based on the individual components of the project's decision structure. This slide will discuss the desired analytic goals from this project using a top-down approach. The Education Improvement Committee needed decision support tools based on valid measures to designate schools guided by New York's ESSA criteria in order to maintain federal compliance and provide support to schools. This was the origin and purpose of this analytics initiative. This also served as the scope of the project. The function or intended effect for this project was to supply the stakeholders with information that was driven by the requirements in the project scope. This explanatory process will impart key insights based on the designated criteria for EIC's decision makers. The research questions were formed utilizing the specifications explicitly provided by New York's ESSA plan and the Education Improvement Committee. These research questions form the framework for the subsequent data analyses. The results section of this presentation was split into 4 subsections. Each subsection represented a research question, and its results were guided by and addressed that specific question. These also served as the goals for the analyses. Based on provided criteria for top and bottom schools, the desired values were uncovered through analyzing the top 5 and lowest 5 schools based on mean values for ELA and math exams. In addition, the top 5 and bottom 5 performing districts were uncovered. The specified schools and their results were emphasized through various visualizations. Based on provided criteria, most improved and most regressed schools from 2013 to 2014, the graphical creation of trend models were created. These graphics will also serve for easy comparison of the schools that are uncovered based on the specified criteria. The third research question's analytic goals were to uncover evidence that a correlation existed between geographical divisions of borough and districts and the most significant performers with the most change. This was to be accomplished by emphasizing the divisions if notable patterns were discovered. The analyzed results from the previous analyses were to be aggregated on a geographical map to serve as decision support for EIC. The final research question served as the framework for approaching the analytic goals about grade levels. Its quantitative analyses returned in pattern recognition and projection to use as decision support tools. EIC needed evidence from analysis using key accountability indicators and a forecasting model for grade levels. The overarching analytic goal were to produce decision support artifacts that utilize the school accountability indicators for analysis to 2014 New York City's elementary and middle school education systems. The next slide will discuss the communication goals for presenting the information to EIC and the determinants of success. The overarching goal of this presentation is to communicate data so the stakeholders can translate the message into actionable results. A few iterative milestones must be met and adhered to in order to craft and refine the final message that will be presented to the stakeholders. First, the target audience, intended meaning, and the desired effect must be identified and written out to produce the project scope. The next goal was to select the right data for communication. Based on acquired data, suitable visualizations, which will be the main vessel for communication, will be selected. Visualizations will be compared based on different encoding variables' effectiveness. Embracing the different data types, this goal will be met when the final visualizations resonate the relevant results based on the research questions. For this project to be successful, the stakeholders should be able to walk away and remember what information was just presented to them. A presentation that is aesthetically pleasing will both stimulate curiosity and enhance retention. The final presentation will have been designed for aesthetics, color schemes, fonts, alignment, grid lines, images, etc. will all be carefully evaluated and selected to ensure attractive, purposeful aesthetics. For example, blue, green, and orange will be the main color scheme adopted based on New York City's Department of Education brand. Next, the form that the message will adopt and its delivery method are necessarily elements to consider in the communication of the findings. The selections for these were limited since the final presentation will be given at a different time than originally made. The media will have to be static, but this will help ensure a broad reach. The channel for this presentation will be a recorded PowerPoint. Success of communication will be determined in a few ways. First and foremost, the above milestones must be met. In addition, and before the final presentation is received by the stakeholders, a mock one will be given to receive feedback. The recipients of mock presentation will be questioned if they interpreted the data, message, and the way intended, and the reactions expected by this analyst. Based on feedback, this message will be refined and communicated in the final presentation more powerfully. The essence of analytical communication is describing the problem and the story behind it, the model, the data employed, and the relationships among the variables in the analysis. When the relationships among the variables are identified, the meaning of the relationship should be interpreted, stated, and presented relevant to the problem. The clearer the data is communicated, the higher the likelihood the data analysis will transpire to decisions and actions. This section will discuss the characterization of the final presentation's audience and, based on that outcome, personalization methods of this presentation. A clear vision of this project is imperative to form the integrated approach of data sourcing, analysis, and organizational transformation. This vision has already begun through audience analysis. The planning team is called the Education Improvement Committee, and they serve as the final project's intended audience. These stakeholders have varying backgrounds, including education levels, social economic statuses, and professions. Therefore, the final visualizations will be made to account for their differences in backgrounds. Since the Education Improvement Committee are most likely lay people when it comes to data, they are more interested in the practical significance than any statistical significance. Basic descriptive statistics such as counts and percentages will be included, but effect size, margin of error, etc. will be omitted. Technical or statistical jargon will be removed from the final presentation. However, educational jargon and acronyms will be used as necessary. This analyst wants to err on the side of caution and will assume an approach that the audience does not have much familiarity with data visualizations. While this will be data dependent, simple, easy to understand charts such as line, bar, and pie charts will probably suffice. Quote, flashy designs would most likely complicate the subject or distract the audience. In addition, due to the physical and temporal constraints of the presentation, simple static charts will be used. Based on brainstorming sessions, the visualizations will be produced. The selection of each visualization will be intentional. Each graphic's desired effect will be to support school and funding-based decisions guided by the proposed research questions. Specific variables will be color-coded to aid the reader's comprehensions, but they will also be legible in grayscale. Text will be included where necessary to clarify the graphic's messages. The upcoming slide will discuss how the numerical results were integrated to make it meaningful for EIC. The numerical results were integrated based on the target audience, available data, and technology. When values were displayed, the numbers were rounded to the nearest tenth to not clutter the graph, maintain uniformity, and not lose each data point's worth. Unnecessary text was avoided on the visualizations to ensure numerical results will be the final audience's main foci. The numerical results that will be communicated in the final presentation will only be relevant, significant, given in an easy to understand manner, and at that just right level of complexity based on the audience analysis. New York City's Department of Education branding has the colors of blue, green, and orange. Therefore, these colors were also intentionally used in this narrative. Blue and orange were mostly used in the visualization's aid in the graphic's legibility by possible colorblind audience members. The 5 strongest and 5 weakest performers in ELA and math exam areas in 2014 were visualized simply through a bar graph. The schools were listed in a horizontal orientation due to the value lengths and the chart's size restraints. Based on analysis of the dataset, the top 5 strongest and weakest scores, interestingly, had the same exam values for both ELA and math scores. Therefore, the segmentation of the results was superfluous, and the 2 values were combined on the final visualization to produce support to the research questions. Blue was used to denote the strong performance, while orange emphasized the warning from the weakest performers. The bar chart was also used for pattern discovery in grades research question. It allowed for comparison of segments or exam areas for each grade while comparing the grades to one another. Blue and orange were arbitrarily used in this graph to stay aligned to the narrative's aesthetics. Two of the research questions, improvement and regression and forecasting, were supported through time series analysis. Thusly, temporal visualizations were used to demarcate the trends of data over time. The parameters of each chart were adjusted to better narrate the results to make visualizations more meaningful as decision support tools. Colors were intentional in the temporal graphs as well. Blue was used to emphasize higher test measures, while orange served as a warning to the audience of lower exam measures. For the most changed schools, visualizations were crafted for each category, improved and regressed, to allow examination of the two test areas. For the predicted 2015 scores, graphs were created to compare ELA and math scores for each grade. Values were included as necessary to emphasize the visualizations method. One of the research questions appertains to the correlation of the geographical divisions in school performance measurements. Therefore, the most logical way to integrate the results was to locate the areas on a map and narrate the quantitative information through them. The utilization of maps will serve as a decision support tool to emphasize any patterns or distributions that are not apparent on tables or charts. Maps are to be used in this initiative for the analysis and presentation of the results. When significant in results, the maps narrated the story of the comparison of boroughs and districts to compare their schools' performance measurements, which will summarize the provided data sources into intuitive and attractive graphics. Based on the available data and technology, static choropleth or proportional symbol maps were utilized in response to this research. However, comparison visualizations such as bar graphs or heat maps were also used to support this question. This section will discuss the chosen data visualization software that was used preparing the data for viewing and will be used in the final presentation. In addition, it will discuss their alternatives relevant to the organization. Data-driven decision-making is powered by technology. For the results of this project to be able to be conceived as decision support tools for the stakeholders, the appropriate technology must be incorporated. Therefore, careful considerations were given to the technology selected for use. Tableau was the chosen data visualization tool. Minitab was selected to augment Tableau as necessary for analytics, and PowerPoint will serve as the media for a final presentation to EIC. The following will defend the use of these choices as well as provide an overview of its applicable software alternatives relative to the EIC environment. Tableau was chosen as the principal data visualization tool as it is very effective at creating visualizations. This initiative was successful with the many features offered by Tableau. There were multiple data sets, and Tableau allowed for the files to be combined into one source of data. Tableau has an easy user interface that provided flexibility to explore graphics, to discover the various mapping of data values to graphical features, to optimally create the most engaging and effective designs appropriate to the data. Tableau has powerful capabilities including filtering, highlighting, slicing, or sorting data to accentuate the message the data was conveying. Many comparable alternatives to Tableau exist on the market. QlikView offers many of the same features as a data analytics solution, and their prices are comparable for one-time licensing. However, QlikView has a higher learning curve due to its intricacies, so many analysts believe it is more difficult to operate as a new user. In addition, from this analyst's personal experience, QlikView is not as intuitive or user-friendly as Tableau. Both R and Python are compelling and free alternatives to Tableau. Like Tableau, these tools can import, join, and process datasets. However, they are much higher statistical and machine learning power. Tableau, on the other hand, has a graphical interface and produces much more visualization capabilities. Excel is another low-budget alternative to Tableau. However, Excel is nowhere near as intuitive or powerful in the realm of data visualization. On the contrary, Tableau is not useful for multi-layered calculations, and it should not serve as the solution for multiple calculations on the data prior to analysis. The latter will either be done in Excel or Minitab as necessary for this project. In addition to the main visualization tool, two other technologies had roles in the production, supplementation, and consolidation of the visualizations. Minitab serves as the main statistical tool in the preparatory and analytic stage of this initiative. Minitab was used to transform the data prior to analysis. In the exploratory stage of the project, Minitab's graphical summary feature was used to provide quick views of the measurement data. This graphical summary emphasized the distribution, variances, and any anomalies of the data sets. In addition, Minitab was used to explore the interactions amongst multiple dimensions. Other alternatives exist to Minitab's role as the primary data exploration tool. One of the primary reasons Minitab was selected was due to it being free to this analyst. R and MATLAB both offer the same features as Minitab with a free availability to students. However, both have steep learning curves, while Minitab is very easy to use and understand. JUMP is an intuitive, user-friendly alternative to Minitab that offers the same statistical exploration as Minitab. However, Minitab was chosen due to its accessibility to this analyst. PowerPoint will serve as the final analytics report vessel of this initiative and will be utilized to present the results tailor-made to EIC. PowerPoint has been used to consolidate and display all relevant and important data analysis graphics to communicate the results of the data in this initiative. Based on the analytics and visualizations prepared in the Minitab and Tableau environments, an informative visualization product in the form of PowerPoint presentation will be developed. PowerPoint was chosen due to its automatic abilities of recording the presentation and slide progression, accessibility, and price. Other alternatives exist as the presentation software. Google Slides is a formidable opponent, has both work the same and are freely accessible to this analyst. Google Slides is a great alternative when collaboration is necessary, as it is easy to share and have multiple designers work on the same project remotely. Canva is an intuitive alternative to PowerPoint as well, as there is a large collection of ready-to-use layouts. Unfortunately, many of the advanced design options in PowerPoint, such as slide transitions or text cutout, are not available in Canva. Now I will discuss the benefits and limitations of the software and any workarounds that could be or already have been implemented to facilitate data communication to EIC. The communication of the data is pivotal to this project's success, and the portrayal of the results will be the primary decision support tools for the EIC. To recapitulate, the main visualization tool, which will be used in the graphics in the final presentation, was Tableau. Designers can easily create graphics with the added capability of switching between visualization types to find a model that is best suited for the narrative. Tableau can handle large amounts of data while maintaining a well-organized graphical interface with easy-to-customize views. The information for this project existed in multiple data sets, and this software easily allowed for integration of multiple data sources. This initiative only required the use of simple statistics, which Tableau was capable of. This analysis was able to drill down and data blend with Tableau, which uncovered any relevant and important trends and correlations of the New York City educational data. New York's Education Improvement Committee would benefit from business intelligence. For the duration that the ESSA is law, the same measurements would need to be captured and analyzed yearly. Therefore, a dashboard is recommended that would be a living product that would display all relevant information that would ultimately serve as performance measurement indicators. EIC would be capable of using more data to update the results of the models to influence their school's decision support. EIC would be advised to retrain the models within specific timeframes to ensure their reliability and accuracies. The forecasting models could be updated based on results as well. When applicable, the dashboard interaction will allow for the selection past date ranges and to drill down on different exams, schools, grades, boroughs, and/or districts. Additional data such as attendance or curriculum-specific usage could be positioned as well if captured. Unfortunately, no method exists for saving the dashboard locally with Tableau Public, and each dashboard instance would have to be published online. Therefore, if the EIC would like to use sensitive data or securely store the dashboard, they do not have this option with Tableau Public. In addition, for EIC to position more data into the dashboard, they should have the capability of connecting to a database. New York City's Department of Education provides visualizations of recent years. However, the raw data would be necessary for this initiative's analysis is not accessible. Despite this limitation, this analyst had enough available data and was able to stay within the scope of the project to produce quality deliverables. However, a recommendation will remain for EIC to utilize Tableau Server to continue to harness the business intelligence power of Tableau. While only participating in a supporting role to the final decision support artifacts, Minitab was included as it was instrumental in the data communication as the foundational tool of the exploration stage. Minitab was chosen based on its statistical powers, its price, and this analyst's familiarity and access to the software. Unfortunately, the visual outputs of Minitab are not expressive enough to use as the data's main communication channel. The graphs that have multiple data points are difficult to understand. In addition, the choices and personalization of the graphics are limited. While this is a limitation as a statistical suite for Minitab, this was not a hindrance for the final project. While Minitab software can produce the required output for this initiative, Tableau is responsible for the main visual results in this presentation. PowerPoint was chosen as the main medium for the data visualizations and will be utilized to give the final presentation. It is an intuitive and powerful tool that allows for effective data communication. PowerPoint slides are easy to create, organize, and manage. The PowerPoint presentation will be aesthetically pleasing, which will keep the target audience interested. PowerPoint permits for the inclusion of the Tableau produced data images that will serve as EIC's decision support tools. PowerPoint slides are capable of blending both images and words to allow for thorough communication of the results. Unfortunately, PowerPoint slides media by itself is a lifeless presentation. As supported by research that was compiled by 3M, humans are more likely to comprehend and remember presentation content with video. Video presentations are most effective that show the presenter alongside the content. Receiving eye contact and being able to interpret body language would make the stakeholders feel like they are being communicated to in the same room. This would aid in the maintenance of the stakeholders' attentions while improving both their understanding and retention of the results. While a live presentation would be best, a feature that allows for the presenter to be visually seen while the presentation simultaneously recorded would be the next ideal for data communication facilitation. Fortunately, PowerPoint has an added recorded feature for presentations. While not equal, the workaround for this limitation would be to record narration with the final deliverable in PowerPoint. The next couple slides will describe the provided data, preparatory steps prior to analysis, and the analysis approach on the data sets. This will be included here to provide EIC the rationale for application techniques used to identify, process, and analyze information that will be applied to the project, which will allow the audience to critically evaluate the results' reliability and validity. EIC has provided the data for this project. These data sets were subgroups that contain 2013 to 2014 ELA and math assessment data for 3rd through 8th grades. The subgroups contain student information by borough, school, and district. Each of these subgroups records contain exam year, grade, number tested, mean score, and performance level. The final subgroup were grade levels on a citywide level. This subgroup contained exam area, district year, grade, number tested, mean score, and performance level. These data sets can be found following the URL displayed. The first step in the data preparation stage was importing the data sets into the Minitab statistical suite for exploratory analysis. This included evaluating the variables to be analyzed and the data's distribution as well as any outliers or missing values. Correlations, trends, and patterns were looked at prior to analysis as well. Minitab was the main software for data analysis. The first step was to use the year 2014's mean exam and performance values for schools and districts, respectively, to find the top 5 and bottom 5 performing schools and districts. Next, analysis was performed in Minitab to find the largest differences of the average exam values between 2013 to 2014 districts and schools. Next, using both of the previous analysis results, the most interesting values were aggregated based on district and results to emphasize any geographical patterns. The following analysis approach was the exploration of citywide grade levels, average exam values. Finally, trend data was created to forecast 2015 ELA and math scores by each grade and all grades. Now that the audience members understand the actions that were taken to investigate the data, the following are the proposed artifacts that will serve as the tools to improve Education Improvement Committee's data-driven decision-making. For the first section, these results will provide support to the questions: what schools and districts are the 5 strongest and 5 weakest performers in ELA and math exam areas in 2014? This is a visualization to provide the audience a feel of the data by observing the distribution of the average ELA and math scores for all schools in 2014. 1,128 schools were included in this project's analysis. A normal probability fit line is included for the audience's reference, and this aids in the identification of any abnormalities of the scores. The green line represents the mean value for each exam. They are relatively normal, but the ELA, which is blue, is a little more skewed from normal, with higher frequencies of higher and lower exam values. However, the average scores for both are the same. They are both 295.1 and the standard deviation is 16.66. New York City's Department of Education branding has the colors of blue, orange, and green. Therefore, these colors are intentionally used for the remaining graphics. In this graphic, blue is used to denote the stronger performers and orange is used to denote the weakest performers. The 5 strongest and 5 weakest performers in ELA and math exam areas in 2014 are visualized simply through this bar graph. The schools are listed in a horizontal orientation due to their name links. Based on analysis of the dataset, the top 5 strongest and weakest scores interestingly had the same exam values for both ELA and math scores. Therefore, the segmentation of the results was superfluous and the 2 values were combined. To summarize, this graphic is intended to identify the top and bottom 5 schools based on the accountability indicators. These graphics are multi-purposed. First, I would like you to pay attention to the large graphic on the left. The previous slide was the bar chart that displayed the top 5 and bottom 5 schools. Here, they are presented by their boroughs on the map. The scores are averaged per borough, and the boroughs are colored based on the legend on the lower left. Bronx is coded as orange, as it has the lowest average exam scores. The darker the blue gets, the higher the average scores are. However, these scores are averages, so it was helpful to include the actual top and bottom 5 schools to see if there is a pattern to where they fall. Based on these values, it is quite evident that the Bronx has a propensity to have average lower exam values, and they even have one of the worst performing schools in New York City. Analyzing districts using the mean score values did not produce any significant results. Therefore, another scale was used on the right 2 graphics for the district's evaluations. The students were ranked in 4 performance levels from failing, struggling, good, and the best. Since populations were different and even school proportions were used as the values analyzed in the graph. On this scale, the top 5 districts where the best students are emphasized. When comparing them to the first graph, it is evident that the top 5 districts primarily come from Queens, then Manhattan, and one instance in Staten Island. The bottom right graph shows the top 5 districts with the highest proportion of failing students. There is definitely an orange cluster that is evident from this graph. The orange districts mostly appear in northern New York City, specifically the Bronx. The map visualizations are fitting for intended message, as it is able to display the correlation of geographical divisions in school performance measurements that would be lost on basic graphs or charts. In the second section, these results will provide support to the question using the years 2013 to 2014, what schools are the 5 most improved and 5 most regressed in the ALA and math exam areas? This information presented here will improve data decision making, since evidence-based interventions are the chosen remedial and positive reinforcement strategies in the Every Student Succeeds Act. Therefore, the data was analyzed to uncover any positive or negative trends in New York City schools. Based on the research question to uncover 2013 to 2014 top 5 most improved and top 5 most regressed schools, the quantitative results provided evidence to allow for evaluation of schools' trends to determine the success of any current or newly implemented program. This visualization is a trend model that shows the increase of average exam values from 2013, which is the start of the bar, to 2014. This bar graph allows for easy comparison of the schools that were uncovered based on the accountabilities measure. The darker the blue, the more the school has improved. On the contrary, the orange bars at the bottom represents the most regressed schools. The scores are separated into both exam categories. However, it appears the average 2013 to 2014 difference was about the same for both exams. The districts are included by both schools. However, no two districts appear on the list. The borough division provides more of a story. It appears that Brooklyn has the most schools and districts that are improved in 2013 to 2014, while the Bronx has been flagged again for under-improving, with 2 schools and districts being negatively represented on this graphic. For the third section, these results will provide support of important relationships between borough and districts and the performance levels. This graphic evaluated the relationship between boroughs and the 4 performance levels of failing, struggling, good student, and best student. Orange and yellow represented lower performance measures, and the teal and blue represented higher performing. A bar graph was chosen since all groups and subgroups could be included and the information would not be lost. The audience member can intuitively navigate the graph and compare values amongst both groups and subgroups. When analyzing the boroughs on the previous slide, the mean score was used. However, this has a tendency to average out for some boroughs, like Manhattan, due to some schools in the borough having higher exam scores and some schools having lower exam scores. Incorporating extra categories and comparing them as shown here helps to paint a better picture. Proportions were used to save for the fact that the boroughs had different populations. It is abundantly clear that the Bronx has the highest frequency of failing students and the lowest frequency of best students. Brooklyn would be the next lowest performing district. On the contrary, Manhattan has the best representation overall, visualizing all values as a whole. Queens and Staten Island followed Manhattan and were roughly similar in performance levels. This visualization had a similar message to the previous bar chart of student performance levels aggregated by boroughs. However, this one uses this district approach. You can see a legend on the top left that shows the colors, but the color scheme still resonates in the graphic that orange means lower performances and blue means higher performances. The bottom axes are the percentage numbers for each district. On the left side, you can see the districts. This visualization will aid in improving data-driven decision-making, since schools that have the lowest accountability measurements are the main focus of the Every Child Succeeds Act. This graph really emphasizes the lowest performing students by district. The districts are in descending order of failing student percentage, with the first district, District 7, having the highest percentage of failing students. 55% to be exact. This graphic provides an excellent decision support resource as EIC can evaluate the results based on how many districts they would like to target. A trend seems to exist that the higher percentage of failing students, the lower percentage of higher performing students. And the opposite holds true. One interesting piece of information that is made apparent on this graph is struggling students stays approximately the same throughout the entire column. Again, since the focus of this graph is to emphasize the districts with the highest percentage of failing students, I want you to pay attention to the top districts 7, 12, 5, 23, and 9. This graph was chosen since all the districts would require a distracting number of bars if we were chosen a bar graph, and the exact values of performance student levels per district are not necessary. This portrays the intended message as it signifies the magnitude of change as the districts are traversed horizontally and/or vertically. The previous area graph compared the magnitude of student level differences between the districts. Since this research question was to explore the relationships between districts and performance measures, here is a visualization again to really solidify the geographical relationship of the lowest performing schools. Except for District 23, the rest appear in northern New York City, specifically the Bronx. Finally, in the last subsection of the results, these artifacts will provide support to the questions: are there any significant differences amongst grade levels in 2014? As well as what are the projected 2015 ELA and math exam scores for each grade and all grades? In order to aid future data-driven decision-making to provide support to schools, EIC needed evidence for setting the baseline of their key accountability indicators for grade levels. The program is responsible for setting student standards for what each grade should be able to accomplish and know per skilled instruction through developed curricula. This bar chart was the result of an analytic process involving average exam scores, and it allows for easy comparisons of the mean score grades for ELA and math. ELA and math had the same values for each grade, so they were stacked on this chart. The colors are arbitrary, but are used to denote that the two exams added into one bar. From this visualization, it is evident that the middle school grade levels 6th through 8th are overall lower by about 20 points. And 8th grade is the lowest. All grade levels were included to see the total average, so one could compare the differences between each grade and the all grades category. This message and the variables that are portrayed by this graph are really simple. Therefore, a simple bar chart was chosen as the results of this specific research question component are so succinct. It allows for easy comparison amongst the grade levels. In addition to the grade level distribution of exam scores, EIC had requested forecasting values for 2015 for each grade. Since only two values exist for each grade, the simple moving average method was used as the time series model to find the forecasted values. This graphic presented to you is a highlight table. It is encoded like a heat map, however the values are included on the table. Like the previous graphics, the darker the orange, the lower the value. The darker the blue, the higher the exam values. The left column area shows the partitioning of the data into two categories, ELA and math. The table is then farther divided into grades. In addition, the previous years are included so the audience understands the history of the trend and a feeling for the numbers. It emphasizes the grades that are improving and regressing and by how much. From this graph, one can surmise that the 8th grade has the lowest averages in both exams and got the worst in math, but better in ELA. In addition, and with the exception of 8th grade, all grades improved on the math scores in 2014. One can wonder if the program or curriculum change was successfully incorporated. While the ELA exam grades improved in 2014 for the majority of the grade levels, it was close, but not quite to the same magnitude. The all grades row allows for easy comparison of this as well. The audience members just received a lot of information, therefore the next section will summarize the results. The overall purpose was to supply EIC with evidence-based tools based on ESSA's criteria to aid in the decision-making processes. This initiative has been successful in using the school accountability indicators to identify schools and districts from 2014 that are in need of support to help improve student achievement. These can be found in the results section, and this presentation will be physically provided to the stakeholders to use indefinitely. Middle school grade level average exam scores 6th through 8th were lower than elementary grade levels scores by about 20 points. 8th grade had the lowest average scores and regressed in math scores, while all other grades improved by 1%. The next slide will summarize the geographical division's findings. From the results and visualizations that have been presented, one can easily surmise an association between schools' locations and the accountability indicator results. The best performing schools seemingly fell into Manhattan's or Queens. The results showed that all top performing schools come from these two boroughs, based on exam scores. When using student performance measures, 80% of districts found to have the highest proportion of best students came from these two areas. Overall, Manhattan has the best representation when visualizing student level performance values. Of significance, Queens Academy for Excellence Through the Arts is a top school and most improved in 2013 to 2014. It went up 18 in LAA and 17.3 points in math. Staten Island followed these two measurements and were roughly similar in performance levels. This slide is a continuation of the previous subject of relationship between school locations and accountability results. However, the schools in Brooklyn and Bronx boroughs have lower performance measures. On a good note, Brooklyn had 4 of the 5 most improved schools. However, Brooklyn also has the school with the lowest average exam scores, and it also has one of the top 5 most regressed schools in the city. Overall, Brooklyn is the next lowest performing district after the Bronx. The Bronx borough had the worst overall performance representation. Overall, they have the lowest average exam scores and have the second lowest average exam score of school. The Bronx has 3 out of the 5 districts that have the highest percentage of failing students. It has the highest frequency of failing students and the lowest frequency of the best students. The Bronx has 2 out of the 5 most regressed scores by average exam schools. Contrary to the infamous idiom, numbers do not speak for themselves. The communication of the data is pivotal in this project's success. I will use this part of the presentation to ask questions to make sure the audience members understood the results from the presentation. The following are the researched recommendations that will be made available to EIC based on the results of this analytic plan in order to aid the facilitation of organizational decision-making. One of the main objectives of this project was to aid the Educational Improvement Committee in the identification of schools and districts per New York's Every Child Succeeds plan. This project has been successful in identifying schools based on EIC's accountability indicators. Per the Every Child Succeeds plan, the schools will need to be designated as in good standing or identified for comprehensive support and improvement or target support and improvement, or districts is a good standing district or a target district. Once these schools and districts are notified of their designation, the schools and districts must respond accordingly following the framework provided by the New York's ESSA guidelines. Further information can be found on the URL provided on this slide. The next slides will provide recommendation on possible strategies based on information gleaned from the results of this analytics project. This slide has a focus on recommendations for grade levels. As the results slides mentioned, There were major performance discrepancies correlated with the location of schools. Therefore, when providing future interventions and support to the targeted schools, it will be prudent to drill down on the grade levels to find out more information in order to personalize the strategies in improving the education programs. The results of this process allowed for comparison of the mean score grades for ELA and math. EIC will be able to use this as evidence in determining if the curriculum and/or programs that are being offered are sufficient for each grade by comparing each grade to all the grade levels. This can be used to see where the curriculum can be improved. For example, if a grade level is ranked lower than average, such as 8th grade, then EIC has the capabilities of drilling down to weaker performing districts and schools to pinpoint problems and implement interventions. This evidence can also serve as benchmarks to see if curriculums that are being offered are working. For example, all grades improved by math scores in 2014. A person can speculate if a program or curriculum change was successfully incorporated. EIC had requested forecasted values for 2015 for each grade. Since only 2 values exist for each grade, the simple moving average method was used as the time series model. This model can also serve as the baseline model and will be more accurate as more values are added. However, the model should be updated to a regression model with time series data. This will require increased features and more data, but this will be possible as more information and signals are captured. South Bronx is actually one of the poorest areas in the entire nation, and the districts that were identified as the lowest performing in New York City also reside in this borough. The second lowest performing borough, Brooklyn, is the next poorest with a 21% poverty rate. Augmenting the findings of this initiative, extensive other research has been performed that uniformly found a student's social economic class is one of the most important predictors of their educational success. Unfortunately, these performance gaps mean there are unmet needs and untapped talents amongst the low socioeconomic status students. Increasing funding to impoverished area schools to aid in the narrowing of the performance gaps between students. Funding should be focused on comprehensive academic, nutrition, health, and emotional support and programs for students. These strategies have been successfully implemented across the country. They can help to mitigate impact of the economic inequalities on students' educational performance. The next strategy is enhancing teacher quality. Ample research has been performed that has conclusively demonstrated effectiveness of teachers as a predominant factor that impact the quality of a school. An initiative should transpire that focus on enhancing teacher quality, especially for these impoverished boroughs districts. The following slide will discuss the benefits and limitations of the software and graphics to address EIC's initiative. Data-driven decision-making is powered by technology. For the results of the project to be able to be conceived as decision support tools for the stakeholders, the appropriate technology must be incorporated. Therefore, careful consideration was given to the technology selected for use. Minitab was selected to augment Tableau as necessary for analytics. Tableau was the chosen data visualization software, and PowerPoint served as the media for the final presentation. While only participating in a supporting role to the final data visualization, Minitab was included as it is instrumental in the data communication as a foundational member as the tool of the data exploration stage. Minitab was chosen based on its statistical powers, its price, and this analyst's familiarity and access to the software. Unfortunately, the visual outputs of Minitab are not expressive enough to use as the main data communication channel. The graphs that have multiple data points are really difficult to understand and read. In addition, the choices and personalization of the graphics are limited. While this is a limitation as a statistical suite for Minitab, this will not be a hindrance for the final project. While Minitab software can produce the required output for this initiative, Tableau will be responsible for the final visualization results in the final presentation. The main visualization software was Tableau. I was able to quickly create graphics and had the added capability of switching between visualization types to find a model that was best suited for the narrative of this project. Tableau handles large amounts of data well while maintaining a well-organized graphical interface. The information for this project resided in multiple data sets, and the software easily allowed for integration of the multiple data sources. This initiative was only required the use of simple statistics, which the rest was augmented by Minitab. I was able to drill down and data blend with Tableau, which uncovered any relevant and important trends and correlations of the New York City educational data. While Tableau has many options for visualizations, I would have chosen some different graphics if I had software capable of handling it. EIC would benefit from business intelligence, and a dashboard has been recommended in past slides. However, no method exists for saving the dashboard locally with the free version of Tableau, so sensitive data or securely storing the dashboard is not an option. PowerPoint was chosen as the main medium for the data visualizations and was utilized to deliver the final presentation. It is an intuitive and powerful tool that allowed for effective data communication. The slides were easy to create, organize, and manage. The PowerPoint slides were intentionally created to be aesthetically pleasing, which has hopefully kept you all interested. PowerPoint permits for the inclusion of Tableau-produced data images that will serve as EIC's decision support tools. PowerPoint slides are capable of blending both images and words to allow for thorough communication of the results. As supported by the research that was compiled by 3M, humans are more likely to comprehend and remember presentation content with video. Video presentations are most effective that show the presenter alongside the content. Receiving eye contact and being able to interpret body language would make the stakeholders feel like they were being communicated to in the same room. This would aid in maintaining the stakeholders' attentions while improving their understanding and retention of the results. A live presentation would be best. A feature that allows for the presentation to be visually seen while the presentation is simultaneously recorded is next ideal for the data communication facilitation. Fortunately, PowerPoint has an added recording feature for presentation. While not equal, the workaround for this limitation was to record narration with the presentation in PowerPoint. I want to thank you all for your time today. If you all have any further questions or input, please feel free to reach me by the contact information found on your handouts.